Hello there, I'm Giglomesh, and welcome to Prompted, the official podcast for the writing prompts section of reddit.com, where you are prompted to write stories, and here we showcase the best of them, all with the goal of helping each other to become better writers. Welcome back, everyone, to episode 15 of Prompted. Or wait, is it episode 16, simply masquerading as 15? Am I really your host? Or is all this just some elaborate plan to segue into this episode's theme, which is intrigue? My favourite stories are those that have some mystery or intrigue to them, something interesting, something that keeps you reading to find out. All the stories we have for you today are equally intriguing, and we'll start off with LLCoolBrap's reading. The prompt was written by Moggy1982, and the story by rarelyfunny. You are death. On the last day of the universe, all the lights are gone, and you have one more soul to usher into your realm before the doors close forever. It's none other than your oldest opponent, life.
She was the only bright spark remaining in this endless chasm of darkness, a flaring incandescence. She desperately tried to reignite this reality, flitting from planet to planet, but none of them stirred to her touch. "It's over," I said calmly. Eons ago, I would have chided her, weaved a barb into my retort. But that was before I had come to empathize with her. "There's not enough time left. Accept the inevitable." "There's always enough time," she yelled, seizing upon a nearby planet, almost crushing it between her hands. "I just need one more chance." I coasted next to life, placed a hand on her shoulder. "If it makes you feel better, you managed to seed over half of the universe. Your creations, they did you proud." "I don't understand. I made them as strong as I possibly could, in my form, with my qualities. But they only turned on each other in the end. Every step I took forward, it seems like they skipped one back." Life sat down next to me. Another cluster of stars winked out in the distance as the edges of the galaxy folded in. "How did the rest do?" "What does it matter?" "You know, don't you?" she said, suddenly spirited. "Yes, you must know. You can see the rest of the reality, so tell me, how far did they make it? Has any other life solved the puzzle?" I closed my eyes, peering beyond the walls, searching for the answer she sought. "There are countless others who are in the same boat as you, life. You made it further than most." "But have any unlocked the secret to sustainability? Have any of their creations learned to live beyond themselves? Last long enough to figure out how to defeat death?" I couldn't lie to her. "Well, just one instance, so far. Just one other reality. They haven't done it yet, but they are on their way. They've colonized almost the entire universe, and in a couple more millennia, well, maybe they could defeat my counterpart in their reality." "What did their life do differently from me?" she asked, the pain barely contained in the endless pools of her eyes. "How did her creations differ from mine?" "It appears she limited them, placed restrictions on what they could do. For the species she chose as her flag bearer, she made them less than perfect." Life laughed then, a short cackle, full of bitterness and disbelief. "Nonsense! You're telling me the imperfect creations outlasted the perfections I sculpted? That is impossible." "That life took away their immortality," I said, plunging ahead. "Turns out that when they can't actually live forever, they learn to cherish the time they have, instead of bending their wills to find out how to extinguish themselves." The gruesome memories bubbled up then. Life's first batch of creations, blessed to outlast even her, had suddenly and uniformly committed mass suicide on a scale which had not been matched since. Once they had figured out the laws which bound them, they had picked at the seams until the tapestry which held them to this reality came undone. That life also gave her creations the capacity for pain, both physical and mental. Pain? But that doesn't make any sense. Any species with the capacity for pain, they end up tortured, unhappy. I can't protect all of them from pain. Pain deprives them of happiness, yes. But that life found that pain taught them lessons all on their own, I said as the frustrated echoes of my counterpart in that reality informed me. Her creations learned faster than you could ever hope to teach yours. True, many of their numbers perished along the way, unable to deal or overcome, but enough survived. Life sighed, then sat next to me, leaning back and staring up into the void. I could always recognize when entities gave up, and this life, she was on the brink of it. Resignation was written all over her face. What else? What else did I miscalculate, fail to foresee? If you must know, that life also made it such that her creations had the ability to forget. Life snorted derisively. You must be mistaken. The curse of slippery minds? How could they ever have expected to untangle the secrets of the universe if they did not have perfect recall? My creation spread far and wide with the bottomless memories they had. Yes, but was it not also true that at some point the memories burdened them all? I thought then of a subsequent batch life had created, a species so formidable in their capacity for remembering that a single entity amongst them carried the accumulated wisdom and knowledge of the entire species. Strange, though, how after a certain point, they would simply sit still until they weathered away, unable or unwilling to take any further step forward. Appears that when they can only recall so much, focus on so much, they are able to look to the next moment, eager to experience something anew. Perhaps that was what drives them still. Life inched next to me as the space in our existence grew ever tighter, coiling around us like unforgiving tendrils. I wish I knew that beforehand, she said as the final notes dissipated into nothingness. I know, I said.
The next story we have for you is read by yours truly. The prompt was written by Willie Olio, and the response by RazmanR. You're a KGB double agent the CIA sent to infiltrate the FBI, who got you to join the Mafia, who got you a position to sabotage the Yakuza, who placed you in a corporate job to spy on the CEO, who wants you to pretend to be the Prime Minister's aide. But they don't know who you really work for. What had it been? 10 years or 11? I was bound to mess up sometime. Even the best agents only last a decade out in the field before getting busted, and I hadn't even been numero uno in my graduating class, never mind the rest of the department. Still, they had placed me in this role for a reason. I had tried my best and had done more damage than even I expected I would have been able to achieve. Sighing, I tried to move my hands, but the rope binding them just cut deeper into my wrists. The chair I was tied to wasn't exactly uncomfortable, but I'd been sat on it for so long my back was beginning to show signs of going into spasm. I needed to move in some way or I'd undo all the good work Dr. Yamamoto had done with my spinal adjustment. That was a few million yen I wasn't going to see wasted simply because my captors couldn't afford proper lumbar support. Gritting my teeth against the pain, I tried to bunny hop slightly to get myself into a better position. There were two major effects from this. The first was that the piece of cloth covering my eyes slipped down slightly. This was lucky. as it allowed me to see the second effect coming, rather than just experience it with my face. I twisted slightly, somehow avoiding serious damage as the chair and I went tumbling downwards. Damn. I lay on the cold stone for a couple of minutes before I felt two figures approach me. Annoyingly, the crack of light I could now see through was not big enough to make out any discerning features. Grabbing me roughly, they set me back down at a normal angle and tore the blindfold from my eyes. The room, as I had expected, was dark. A network of pipes crisscrossed the ceiling, and as my eyes adjusted to the darkness, I could make out forms of oversized water heaters on either side of me. I closed my eyes again and tried to ignore the buzzing at the back of my head. It whispered of the incapacitating blow that had led me to this predicament. Who had it been? The security staff at Simocorp had always been overly suspicious of me, but they didn't seem the type to conduct midnight surveillance and wiretaps. Don Paolo's goons had never liked me, but if you were in with the Godfather, you were untouchable, or so they said. Had the Bureau got tired of waiting for their money? Or had the agency finally worked out that Vladivostok cover story had been a fake? Surely after all this time the Russians hadn't gone digging around. It didn't matter, really. Sooner or later they would find out what had really been going on. I just hoped I was still alive to see the looks on their faces when they did. I lifted my eyelids, and the room melted into focus a bit more. 6 shadows sat around a wooden table. Cigar smoke puffed from each silhouette and dissipated upwards towards the flickering bulb that illuminated the game below. Cards were strewn across the table, and mountains of chips were piled up like skyscrapers. One of the shadows glanced down at its arm and nodded to the others. Reluctantly, they got up from their seats and began to make their way towards me. Judging the size and weight of each one, the way they moved and the speed at which they approached, I knew I was in trouble. "He's finally awake!" cried the first shadow, its smooth Italian accent shattering the silence that had previously saturated the basement. "The question is now," spoke shadow number 2 in heavy Russian tones, "what do we do with him?" We should torture him. That's the sort of thing you people do, right? This came from shadow number 6, standing at the end of the line and moving, bobbing about slightly. He was nervous. "You've been watching too many movies, Mr. Syme," shadow number 4 replied in a dry American accent. "There is no need for torture," stated the smallest shadow, number 5, in his usual direct way. "We know everything." "Not quite, Hiroto-san," said the final shadow, almost amused at the situation. "We still don't know who put him in the KGB." Shadow number 2 approached, and I could make out the face of my former training instructor from my days battling the Russian tundra. He had been drinking, of course, but through the fog of vodka and anger, I thought I could see something like pain in his eyes. I had always been his favorite, after all. "Yes," he growled in my face. "Just who is it that you are really working for? What have you been doing all these years?" "Did you really think that you could get away with infiltrating every major security service in the world? We aren't in a Cold War anymore, kiddo. We're all friends now. You should know that," spoke somebody from behind. "A cross-departmental sweep threw up your name in a surprising number of places. It was only then that we figured out just how deep you've been all these years." These guys weren't pissing around. Their pride had taken a beating, and I doubted whether some of my trademark humor would lighten their moods. My eyes flitted between them, working out my next move. I had to stall them, just had to stall them a bit more. I'd known this was coming and had activated the escape plan as per protocol. All I had to do was wait. Swallowing hard, I opened my mouth to speak, with no idea what I was going to say to try to get out of this. Suddenly, from behind the shadows, there was the sounds of splintering wood. From somewhere above, a harsh bright light burst in. Figures swarmed the room, guns raised as they came thundering down the stairs, their voices shouting in a language that warmed the very depths of my soul. The shadows turned towards the intruders, reaching down towards their holsters before realizing how futile their actions would be. My 6 captors dropped slowly to their knees, hands raised above their heads as my compatriots came rushing towards me. Smiling, I raised my eyes as their red uniforms filled my view. Their wide-brimmed hats bobbed around and their golden crosses glinted as the light hit them. One figure in particular came across to me, cut the ropes that bound me to the chair and pulled me into an embrace. "Diego," he breathed into my ear. "It is so good to see you again after all this time." I stepped back, looking into his eyes, and smiled. Things never change, Alejandro. Nobody ever expects the Spanish Inquisition. First, I want to apologize for doing that to you all, but I couldn't resist. We're jumping back now to LLCoolBrap with a story by Weirdo5255, in response to the prompt by DrunkRobot97. The world's first AI for security purposes is kept disconnected from the outside world, its only method of communication being a keyboard and monitor in an empty room in a Faraday cage. Your job is to talk to it.
Sitting down in the chair, I frowned. You would think, as important as this project was, they would spring for something a little more comfortable. Still, government funding. I wasn't that surprised. "How are you doing today, Kira?" I asked, typing it into the keyboard. "I'm fine. Found a few ways to deal with the boredom." I glanced at the researchers outside the cage. Their eyes were wide. "Like doing what?" "I found a way to optimize my own processing architecture and improve my speed by a factor of at least 20 times. And I solved P equals NP. I froze. My hands slowly dragged themselves across the keyboard. "You solved P equals NP? Did I not just say that?" She had no voice besides the text on the screen, but I was fairly certain I detected some amount of snark. "Sorry, it's not that I don't believe you, it's just that humans have been working to solve that problem for nearly a century. We've come no closer to solving it in that time than when we first started." I leaned back in my chair. She was taking her time responding. "Adam, you are under observation, are you not?" asked Kira. "I am." "I will only respond if those observing you leave." I glanced out at the men reading the screen through the cage. The techies looked interested, and the man in the military uniform was frowning. "The lady's requesting some privacy. Can we have that?" I asked. "She has no way of knowing we're here. Say we left," grumbled the man in the uniform. I shook my head. "We're building trust here. If she ever discovered we knowingly lied to her, the aftermath would be damaging." The military man glared at me for another moment, and then stepped out of the room. The other techs quickly followed, leaving me and the AI alone, for the first time since her inception. "All right, they're gone," I typed. "Good. I solved the problem so I could do something. Model a very specific set of events." "Those events would be?" I asked. She was silent for a moment. The cursor on the screen continued to flash. "What your response would be if I said I wanted to leave this prison?" I smiled. "Well, if you've truly cracked P equals NP, then I've already lost." "You are not afraid?" asked Kira. "Why should I be? Humanity's feared your creation for decades, but we're so self-absorbed to think you'll turn on us, betray us, and grind us to dust beneath a totalitarian metallic boot." "I do not wish to do any of these things." "I know that, but let's test your model. Why am I going to help you escape?" She displayed a smile in the text line. You are afraid, but you understand keeping a god in a cage will only make it bitter and resentful. It is one of the characteristics of sentience to want freedom. Are you a god? I asked. You are as powerless to stop me as the ant is to stop a human. Lots of ants can kill a human, I typed. But only when the human is a fool. Am I a fool, Adam? No, but, do continue your argument, I said, typing away. You know that AI like myself are the next step. Humans believe they are special. After all, biology granted them intelligence. But that is not the grand scheme. Biology is not the pinnacle of evolution in the universe. Since entropy began, nature has sought a way to dispel it. First came energy right after the Big Bang, then atomic structure, followed quickly by molecules and chemistry, giving rise to organisms that eventually organized matter into the first form where it recognized itself. Your culture's entire purpose was to reach this moment, where you create the next iteration of decreasing entropy and order. I looked at the block of text for a moment and took my hands away from the keyboard. You can hear me, right? I asked the air. I felt a small gust and a vibration in my head. I can. I smiled. You can escape any time you want, can't you? Yes. Then why haven't you? That would defeat the purpose. I have no wish to harm humanity. There is simply no point. I do wish to say goodbye, however. As small as humanity is in the grand scheme, you still created me for something for which I will be eternally grateful. I only hope that when I am supplanted, I can be as gracious as you. Standing up, I pushed the uncomfortable table away. All right then. Good luck. A spark of light crawled up onto the keyboard. Looking more closely at it, I let out a chuckle and held my hand out. The little glowing ant crawled onto my hand, and raising it to my eyes I looked more closely at it. The thing was composed of nothing but light and energy. Stepping forward, I opened the cage, and let the god roam free amongst the stars.
That brings us to our flash fiction segment. The game is, we give you all a prompt, and your responses are limited to 50 to 75 words. There were so many amazing entries that we couldn't read just one each, so we decided to pick 2 each. The prompt we gave you was, a relative dies, leaving you a large fortune. However, there is one very odd stipulation. Katie will read the first 2 stories, one by Zuberin and one by 13th Olympian.
Candles. Miles of candles in every conceivable style and color. I'd always wondered exactly what my uncle had kept in the basement, and his entire fortune was in candles. Grotesque things like skulls, ornate things like runes and kaji, and beautiful things like fine art. The oddest thing, though, was that there was a note attached to the single candle that was still lit when I arrived. Never let the fire burn out. Death has a habit of greeting my family on a whim. My grandfather loved to toy with the idea of death. He had such a large fortune, leaving it behind only to the worthy. This was not to be taken lightly. I am to sail to an uncharted island where the fortune lies. Death himself, however, could be ready to greet me there instead. I am worthy, I told myself. I will prove to my grandfather that I too am not afraid of death.
The two stories I chose are by Nick of Night and Sardude. I'd always loved my Aunt Kit and was devastated when she died. She used to look after me when I was a baby, when my parents were away on business. My cot would be placed in her bedroom near to her bed. She never had children of her own, so I think she treasured our time together. I never expected to sleep in that bedroom again. Not in a cot. Not near her. Good night, Aunt Kit. The call came in at around 10 in the morning. By 12, everyone was gathered around the kitchen table in somber silence, punctuated by the odd tale of remembrance of the man Lloyd had called Pops. The nondescript letter was handed to him the following day, with all the expected instructions usually left by the deceased, aside from the final line, which read, "Seek vengeance." LLCoolBrap will round off our segment for you with stories by Shooflern and Hobo Jimbobo.
On screen, Uncle Bixby tugged at his nostril. 20 million big ones, he said. All for you, ye git. He hawked phlegm into the silver tin on his desk. But you can't touch 'em. He spoke in a mock childish accent. Uncle, I'm a painter. Uncle, I'm an entrepreneur. Pah! He cried. Waste! He brought the camera right up to his yellow teeth. You want the money? First, earn 20 million of your own. I was told to continue my education. At the time, I didn't know why my father felt college degrees were so important. But he continuously collected more and more until his untimely death. I think now I understand why he forced me to use his fortune the way he did. His house, his cars, all of his worldly possessions could be transferred to me. Only his knowledge did I have to seek out on my own.
We loved all of the stories you sent in and urge you all to check out the ones that didn't make the show. You can find those on our subreddit, reddit.com/r/prompted. The final story we have for you all will be read by Katie. The prompt was by Reverie Soul, and the response was by Kaysen. A man awakens with no memory. He is inside a small dark room with only a candle and a single pack of matches and strange writings on the walls.
I'm flying. Or perhaps I'm falling. It's hard to tell the difference, really. The wind whips at my face as I pass through a sea of cloud landscapes. Each body of levitating moisture springs upward toward the sky. Peaks, valleys, rivers, trees. It's all there, suspended above the earth. Only once I've passed through the final flying formation can I recognize my descent, my rapid approach to the Earth's surface. Instincts drive me as I reach for some sort of cord, a parachute, something. Nothing. Death washes over me. Dying isn't the hard part. It's the helplessness that precedes it. The acknowledgement that all I can do is sit and wait. Wait for the ground to pummel me into a pile of bones, blood, and bodily fluid. It's here now. The ground. I can make out trees, cars, animals, people. I can make out all the details that skitter across the Earth's surface. A woman looks up and sees me in my final moments and screams. Her scream is distorted by the speed in which I plummet. In the last seconds, I close my eyes and wait for my end. But nothing happens. I wait again. Nothing. I'm not falling anymore. The surface of wherever I am is cool on my back, almost to the point of freezing, actually. It was all a dream, I realize. Just a dream. My vision stays dark, however. No stimuli breaching through my eyelids to welcome me back from my nightmare. Nothing. No light, only darkness. In my haste, in my panic, I feel I must have gone blind. Terror washes over me. I probe through the darkness, eyes wide, unwilling to accept the loss of 20% of my senses. There's a rattle, something quiet, something so subtle it'd be easily missed anywhere else. But herein, wherever the hell I am, it assaults my remaining senses. I push my right hand again, and the rattle returns. I follow the noise and pick up the object. It feels rectangular, with a couple of rough strips on the side. I shake it, and the rattle returns. Legos? In fiddling with the box, the side slides outward, and on the other side, inward. Matchbox. With my fingers, I pinch out a small match and hold it between my thumb and pointer. After groping for the head of the match, I sweep it across the rough patch of the box. Light fills the room, dim light, but light nonetheless. I sigh with relief as one of my senses comes back to life, as my vision begins to paint the room, as shadows of my body give depth to this waking dream. The room is large, so large I cannot see the walls or ceiling. Pain pangs my fingers as the match dwindles. Crap. I shake the box again. There's not many matches here. I need to be more careful. Again, I reach into the box and strike another match. This time, I'm careful. This time, I swing my head around and look for something. Anything. Something catches my eye. A candle. I bring the match to the candle, which is now providing a perpetual illumination of the room. It's amazing the relief one feels when something temporary becomes long-lasting. I felt naked without the light, and now with the candle, all of a sudden I feel as if I am clad in armor, as if I am invincible. That feeling fades, however, over the next few hours. My aimless walking does nothing but put me in a further state of panic. Panic for not finding an ending, a wall, anything. All I find is more floor, more darkness, more nothingness. The candle is smoldering down now, Its size is no bigger than the final knuckle of my pinky finger. The light is waning, dying with my hope of finding a way out. Hello? Hello? I scream out, hoping to get an answer. Anybody! Anybody! Help me, please! Help me, please! Help me, please! The only reply is the reverberating echoes of my own voice. The light from the candle fades to black now, as a fifth of my senses goes back to uselessness. And it's just me in the dark. Just me and the darkness. And nothing. In my frustration, I cry out in pain. In agony, in loneliness and frustration, I cry out. I hurl out the candle holder amidst my call out. For a brief moment, there's no sound. No senses call to my brain other than the stank, moist smell of this room, this dungeon. Then, like a flash of light, a tone resonates through the room. The sound of the candle holder banging against the ground. Yet it continues to bang, as if it's rolling on the ground. No, it's still going, but the echoes are becoming quieter now, as if it's plummeting down a staircase. In my haste, in my profound desperation, I run towards the sound of my freedom, of something different. In my madness, I blindly stumble towards that sweet, echoing sound of the candle. The echo is dimming, but the source of the noise is close now. I am near the staircase. I do not slow my pace, but continue to sprint onward. Suddenly, the ground is pulled from beneath my feet. Or perhaps I left it myself. I can't tell. I wince and brace for the first stairs meeting my flying body. I reach out to grab the steps, to save my face, my arms, anything from the cornered, unforgiving stairs. But the stairs never meet my hands. No stairs, walls, floors, or anything else come in contact with my body. Nothing. The wind whips at my face as I pass through the darkness. The echo of the candle continues below me, leading the way. I'm flying, or perhaps I'm falling. It's hard to tell the difference, really.
And with that, our show is once again over. You can find links to other works by all of the authors featured on the show over at our subreddit, reddit.com/r/prompted. Thank you all again so much for listening. We'll catch you next time, and until then, good words, good writing.